On today's show, you'll hear investor perspectives on the COVID-19 impact on the cannabis market. This is Investor Perspectives. I'm the host of Investor Connect, Hall T. Martin, where we connect startups and investors for funding. It's the time of COVID-19. Cannabis is currently gaining regulatory approval across the U.S. The lockdown has declared certain sectors, including cannabis, to be an essential service. We have investors and startup founders describe the impact of COVID-19 on the cannabis market. I hope you enjoy this episode. My first guest is Matt Nordgren of Arcadian Capital. Great. So what do you think is the impact of COVID on federal regulatory? You think that's going to accelerate things or have no impact at all?
It depends on what happens in November. And not just from a presidential standpoint, but obviously Congress, Senate. I mean, there are a couple of individuals that are almost solely responsible at today's point in time for certain things not getting through. And so, yeah, November means a lot to everything that's going to happen. I do think it's a bipartisan issue. If you had full Republican control of everything in one way or full Democratic control the other way, I still don't think you get past this next presidential term without federal policies in place, certainly on the medical side, but I think even on the recreational side, quite frankly. But if it's split, then part of the problem is trying to get, different parties to agree on policy. I think they all want it, but I think we're going to have to see what happens in November, and we're just going to do everything we can until then. But with impeachment and then COVID and, riots, and we're just not going to get heard. Things aren't getting heard. They want to be heard, but there's just bigger problems in the world. And I think we're a solution to it. I think we all are in it for that reason. But we're going to have to be heard, and there's going to be priorities that take place through November. So I think we just do what we're doing. We tell our companies survive and then thrive. That's okay, because whatever happens in November, we're going to be fine. We just want to understand what the conversation is and how it needs to be had, because it's a different one based on that.
Oh, great. Well, how much do you think the tax revenue generation really impacts that? Do you think that speeds that up? Do people recognize that, or is that not a factor in this case? It's just politics.
I always said it was a huge factor, and I think it is, because any amount of money is meaningful. But if you look at deficits as compared to stimulus plans, you're talking trillions of dollars, right? So the billions and billions of dollars that cannabis revenue can generate, yes, it's very meaningful. In fact, if you go look at Colorado, I think they crossed the billion revenue mark after 5 years, a couple of years ago or something like that. That money has been spent. I don't know how meaningful it is for their entire budget, but $1 billion has been spent on roads, on teachers, schools, something for the community. It's tax dollars. So whether it's meaningful or not, that money is going back to citizens and for a better life for citizens, hopefully. So I think it's a big number. It is meaningful. How meaningful? Some say more meaningful than others. I think it's meaningful regardless what it means, because it's the right thing to
do. My next guest is Ben Larson of Vertosa, an advanced infusion technology company in the cannabis space. How far behind do you think FDA is from the initial regulatory approval process, of which most think will have it approved by 2025, maybe 2030 at the latest, given the current rate that it's going? What do you think the time frame is for the FDA approval?
That's a great question, the ultimate question. And in fact, going back to one of your earlier questions, what are some of the things that have been positively or negatively impacted by COVID? I would say that this conversation has been negatively impacted because the FDA is only focusing on COVID-related issues right now, right? So it's kind of taken the cannabis conversation off the table. So everything just kind of feels on pause with the federal government. And I don't want to get too political, but, the federal government hasn't always been quick to react to where the general public is heading, right? And so, back in 2015, when I first got in the industry, we were hypothesizing that, okay, the first baby step is medical, second baby step is recreational, and so on and so forth. of course, not everything happens as logically as we had expected. And so what we realized is, oh, maybe there's a bigger opportunity for states to just determine, hey, cannabis isn't all that bad. Let's just legalize it and let the consumers determine how they use it. And like I said, that line between what is recreational and what is medical becomes very fuzzy, right? I don't anymore have a card saying that I'm a medical patient, but I sure as hell use it as a medical tool, right? My back starts to hurt. I start thinking about different combinations of cannabinoids I can take to relieve that pain. If I'm having a hard time sleeping, if I have stress, pain, these are things that people use cannabis for every day. And those are things that have historically been regulated to, over-the-counter medicines like Tylenol and ibuprofen or pharmaceutical drugs, right? And so it's a big opportunity. And I think, I went to school for civil engineering, and we had this saying, and it's like, water will find its way. Water goes where water wants to go, right? And I think that also holds true for cannabis. Like when you really evaluate the impact, both positive and negative, that cannabis can have for society, I think it is so heavily weighted on the positive side that cannabis will find its way, and the general public will ensure that happens. And now that we have 33 some odd states that have some form of legal cannabis, I think at the federal level, it's a matter of time. So whether it happens next year or 5 years from now, the general populace is already there.
Well, it's interesting to watch the FDA during the lockdown when the need for a vaccine comes up and the steps they take to actually accelerate the identification and approval and testing of a vaccine. And I myself had hoped that we would probably get a much more lean, efficient FDA approval process out of it that would apply to all products and drugs after COVID, because why are we taking years? We can do this much faster. We can do it in months instead of years now with the new technologies that we have, but the regulatory needs to catch up to that. Do you think there's any validity in that? Do you think that the FDA will move into a higher speed for approval and testing of these tools, given the fact that with vaccines of COVID, they were able to accelerate it greatly? It's not here yet, but it's well ahead of the plan that it would be pre-COVID for sure.
Sure. Now you're really testing my will to not get political. But one thing I will say is that the federal government is always really great at protecting their job. And if things take a long time, people have jobs at that level. The other thing I will say is that the pharmaceutical industry has been very successful in the past at lobbying, and they also benefit from this long, arduous process. There's a reason that Gilead is the front runner for delivering a COVID treatment, and all of a sudden they want to charge the public $3,100 a treatment, each treatment, where the public funded that research. $70 million the public, through tax money, contributed to that research. And then Gilead's going to turn around and charge the general public $3,100. So no, I don't think it's going to change, unfortunately. And those are the same forces that have been pushing against the cannabis industry for the last century. And so that is what we're up against. But the fact that we've made this much headway, the fact that cannabis is now an essential industry, like you can't stop this movement in the cannabis space. But I am still optimistic that we will see change at the federal level. It's just never as quick as it needs to be.
Are you exploring applications in the medical space with this, say migraines, where you're actually being able to deliver the effect more quickly, is a big value to the patient in that case? Are you going down that path with it? And do you think that's a profitable path?
Yes and no, right? So in the cannabis space, it's been very hard to delineate between recreational and medical, right? As soon as it started becoming a discussion to go recreational, the legislators kind of start just kind of conflating the two. And it's hard to kind of say, oh, this is only going to be for medical use. That said, we do have doctors approaching us that want to do clinical studies and go down that path. It's just a much longer pathway, right? And so the interesting thing about the cannabis industry is the time it's going to take to achieve sustainability for medicines or even just market sustainability. It's kind of unforeseen. It's been pretty volatile to date. anyone following the industry, it's not going to be a surprise to them. And so, the way we're looking at the industry is build a sustainable business. And right now, that is going to where the money's coming from, right? And serving brands and then feeding the profits back into the research and back into working with medical doctors to achieve these truly efficacious delivery systems.
So it's only under FDA purview if you're making a medical claim, even if you still create a solution that has a certain effect, you can still sell that as long as you don't put a medical claim on it. Do you think people will go that direction given the length of FDA validation and the challenge that comes with it?
Yes, most certainly. I mean, on the cannabis side of things, we're still in the Schedule 1 category, right? And so it's very limited as to the medicines that cannabis can be applied to or how it's researched. On the hemp and CBD side of the business, which we do operate, it's technically two different sides of the business, right? So on the hemp side, we are waiting for the FDA to provide guidance on consumables with CBD. So there was an interesting thing that happened when the Farm Bill passed. Everyone thought that hemp and CBD legalized. Well, it did up until the purview of the FDA. And so we're still waiting for the FDA to say, yes, it is okay to create CBD in beverages. And yes, it is okay to create, CBD in protein bars or what have you. And, you can tell that some states are just going ahead and allowing it, similar to how they created legal cannabis markets. So that, that is great. It's providing access to consumers. And where we think this is going to go is into the kind of the category of dietary supplements, right? Which will be great, be able to allow us to create products that are designed for specific uses. The FDA will be allowed to kind of create this framework and structure so that we're making sure that at least what you're reading on the label has that quantity of product in it. That's the most important step, right? And that's what we've been really fighting for. It's like, if this beverage says that it's going to have 15 milligrams of CBD in it, it better have 15 milligrams of CBD. And unfortunately, that hasn't historically been the case, as there's been this big hoopla to create CBD products.
Thank you for joining us today. As always, be sure to leave a review, subscribe to this podcast, and share it with others. Let's go start up something today. Halti Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for the basis of investment decisions.